the moderator real quick.
Good afternoon.
How's it going?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you today.
Good to see you as well. It's a pleasure to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you. Here, we're working out one thing real quick. Give me 1 second.
Not a problem.
All right, good. We're good. We're good to go.
Absolutely. So just for starters, man, it's a real pleasure to meet you. I've had the opportunity to follow your career, not just what you've done on the court, but, the work that you've done off the court, the Ali Humanitarian Award, what you've done with your family foundation around clean water and education. Growing up, my dad made sure I was always aware of, athletes in our community who use their platform to speak out on broader issues impacting the Black community, man, and just acknowledging you as someone who has really stepped up and continuing in that legacy of other great athletes that have come before. Just appreciate you and appreciate what you do, man.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I think it's incredibly important, especially for athletes. We have a platform. I think it's important for us to speak out. It doesn't mean that we're experts on the cause, but I think it means that we care, we're passionate, and we're shedding light on something that's bigger than us. So that's a lot of what I try to do on the things I'm passionate about. And criminal justice reform happens to be one of the most, I think things that I'm really focused on trying to have an impact on, because it affects people that look like me the most, and people that are from my community, and people that I'm around every day. So it's incredibly important for me.
Absolutely. And so, again, amazing to have this conversation to talk about, raise the age, which here at Citizens for Juvenile Justice is one of, the most important policies that we're advocating for as a independent nonprofit organization, really working to advance youth justice. And for starters, I want to ask you about the trip to the White House. Not only us at CFJJ, but the many organizations in our coalition across Massachusetts. We were all so happy that when you and your teammates had the ear of the president, that you not only spoke about criminal justice reform broadly, but that you highlighted raise the age. So can you just talk a little bit about that trip and that opportunity you had?
Yeah, we got the opportunity. A guy that I think the Celtics and, me, Jalen, and Grant have gotten close to and connected with, Scott Budnick, really connected the dots for us, gotten us an invitation to the White House to sit in front of, I think, some of the White House experts on criminal justice reform that are really working hard on it, along with people from the DOJ that are, trying to really push forward the progress in this area. And I think, we talked about criminal justice. We talked about a lot. I thought really they were the experts. They were giving us so much information, so many ideas to really use our platform to make an impact. I really, the main thing I thought that was interesting was a lot of the time when people aren't informed, even myself sometimes, I'm thinking, why isn't the White House doing more? Why aren't elected officials doing more? And I came to sort of find out there are a lot of barriers that people face in the White House that are actually really pushing forward. They're very educated on the area on criminal justice reform. They're very passionate about it. But they're barriers. Congress can be a barrier. They're different. There's so many different levels on which a bill or raise the age of campaign, something like that, needs to be passed. So I thought that was really interesting. And it's not, we talk about how it impacts certain states more than others. I'm from an area in Georgia where, that state it's heavily impacted by, criminal justice as a whole. It's I think one of the worst in the country. They named Georgia, they named Texas, they named a few of them that have higher rates of, Black and brown people being targeted. Let's just say that. But now I'm in Massachusetts, and I try to make an impact on wherever I am. I was in Milwaukee, I was in Indiana. Now I'm in Massachusetts, and I really have really focused and keyed in on the raise the age legislation. And That's something the Celtics have really been pushing as of late, and I feel like I've joined forces with them. And for me, I want to learn more about it, and really, even for the people that are listening, ask you what that raise the age legislation will do if it's passed.
Absolutely happy to talk about that. So what Raise the Age would do is that it would transform our justice system to better meet the needs of young people who are just beginning to emerge into adulthood. But it also will increase long-term public safety. It would shift 18-year-olds initially and then 19 and 20-year-olds over a 5-year span out of being handled by the criminal legal system and into the juvenile legal system. And the reason Raise the Age is such a crucial and key policy for us is that the treatment of 18 to 20-year-olds currently in the criminal legal system is really our biggest systemic failure. We spend the most money, but yet that population of young people currently gets the worst outcomes through having the worst recidivism rate in the entire criminal justice system. When you compare 18 to 20-year-olds in the adult system to a smaller cohort of young people who remain in the juvenile system until 21, they get much better outcomes, both immediately and lower recidivism, but also long-term, because in the juvenile system, they're not getting that adult criminal record, which has devastating collateral consequences and impact on their ability to get jobs and build a career. They are in a system that is focused on rehabilitation and that employs a positive youth development approach that's really developmentally appropriate to what young people need in order to get the necessary building blocks to move on into a stable adulthood. So when you look at an area of the system that clearly isn't working, the fact that we have an alternative that makes things better for our young people, and when our young people are doing better and they're not reoffending, that's better for our communities over the long term.
So why do you think legislation like this hasn't been passed? What's the barrier? Why won't Congress? Why won't people step in? Why won't people pass this bill? Why won't the state? Why doesn't the state see this as necessary to pass and to really impact these teenagers' lives?
I mean, we've been at this campaign now for a few sessions, and we're thankful to the Celtics for coming on board and supporting. We've really seen, a groundswell of support. So much of it is really rooted in misconceptions. So there are people who say, oh, well, treating these 18 to 20-year-olds in the juvenile system, well, isn't that going to be soft on crime? Isn't that going to lead to more problems in the long term? And that couldn't be further from the truth. As we look now, the current, system of taking 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds and putting them in the adult system that is really geared towards older adults, and it isn't engineered to addressing their needs. The recidivism rate, 3 out of every 4 young people who touches an adult correctional facility ends up being rearrested, and 1 out of every 2 ends up being reconvicted. So the current sort of conventional wisdom, tough on crime approach isn't working. When we keep these young people in the juvenile system, even though they are coming into the juvenile system as youthful offenders or on serious felony offenses, that recidivism rate immediately gets cut in half. So, so much of that has just been educating folks that no, under Raise the Age, keeping these young people in the juvenile system, we are still holding young people accountable when they violate the law, but we're doing it in a way that's really smarter, that's more rooted in where they are developmentally, and that's honestly in alignment with research, because there's a long-term longitudinal study called Pathways to Desistance, which looked at, for young people who are involved in offending behavior, particularly serious offending behavior, what's the thing that causes them to desist from crime and move on and mature and evolve out of it? It's not punishments or longer punishments or threats of punishment. It's really a positive youth development approach that ensures that young people are able to acquire necessary building blocks finishing school, access to employment, and access to employment where they're able to move from job into career, gaining financial stability. When young people have pro-social supports that help them really navigate that pathway, they desist from bad behavior and they move on to a stable adulthood. When you continue to lock kids up, when you continue to cycle them in and out of the system, there's an increased likelihood of dropping out. It becomes more difficult to get a job when they have a record. It becomes more difficult to then, get that level of financial stability. And it just makes young people more likely to continue to get in trouble. So really debunking some of the myths of what really works and doesn't work, that's been a big part of, pushing back on some of that resistance and hopefully getting Massachusetts to a point where we can get this policy across the finish line.
Right. No, I think when you're, just from my point of view, I think when you're born into a poor community, you have poor teachers, you get a poor education, then you end up getting not a high quality job, and then the cycle continues. And then you add in the police targeting you, you add in going through the criminal justice system, and the unhealthy cycle that you talk about, the dysfunctional cycle continues, and then it continues for your kids. So I think it is something that we have to break. As far as raise the age, has Massachusetts already raised the age before, or would this be the first time they've raised the age?
Massachusetts has indeed raised the age. When I started practicing as an attorney in the juvenile and district courts back in 2001, 17-year-olds went into the adult system. And that's the way things were always done. And, and it was really crazy because we were drawing like a line in the middle of every 11th grade classroom. And depending on whether or not you turned 17, you were then either treated in the juvenile system and held accountable there, or you were put into an adult system that was harsh and simply didn't work. At the time when 17-year-olds were pulled into the juvenile system, all the arguments that we hear against raise the age now, we heard then. Oh, it's going to lead to a spike in crime. Oh, it's going to make things so much worse. Oh, you're not holding these kids accountable. Oh, the system's going to explode. Well, what we found was when 17-year-olds came in, initially the first year, there was a slight increase in the number of cases, but then that number progressively went down. And since 2013, when 17-year-olds were brought into the system, juvenile arrests have declined by 62%, with faster declines in violent and property crimes than the national average here. Additionally, the total number of cases throughout the juvenile court system, child welfare, your status offenses, a child requiring assistance, delinquencies, youthful offender, they've also been steadily declining since 2013. So the idea that bringing 17-year-olds was going to lead to this crime wave, it didn't happen. Numbers went down. 17-year-olds were treated better. Lower recidivism. We believe if we brought 18-year-olds in through this policy, we would see a similar pattern. So much of the lesson now moving forward is learning the lesson from before, that we have done this and it worked.
Right. And I definitely agree with what you said in terms of, I think, debunking the myths about where these kids come from, the rates of recidivism. And I think people aren't educated in this area. I think the more you can educate people about what's going on, the more people you can get to shed light on this and to support what's going on. That's why I think what we're doing today is important. How does Massachusetts compare to other states, whether surrounding or the other big states like Georgia or Florida or Texas, in terms of raise the age campaign and what they're doing versus what we're doing here, or what they've accomplished?
Interesting. No, absolutely. So we are not the only state that is considering or that has moved in this direction. Vermont passed a law raising the age to bring 18-year-olds in July of 2020, and they're planning to move 19 and 20-year-olds in. California, Connecticut, Illinois all have legislation pending looking to do the same thing. And Colorado, Washington State, and Arizona currently have task forces, as we once did in 2019 in Massachusetts, to look at the issue. So what we see in these bad outcomes for 18 to 20-year-olds and how putting those young people in the adult system simply doesn't work for them or public safety. And the research around positive youth development and a better approach in the juvenile system, it's not just something that we're doing here. It's something that's being acknowledged and pursued in other states as well. So Massachusetts has the ability still to be, one of the early enactors, but part of really a broader trend in promoting better outcomes for 18 to 20-year-olds, and especially when you look at the racial disparities in our criminal justice system. This is really a racial equity policy as well, because it's going to create significantly better outcomes for Black and brown young people between 18 to 20, especially.
So, I think my last question for you is what can we do more, especially the ones that are willing to use their platform, the ones that are willing to partner with organizations like yours and join campaigns like this? What more can we do? Because I think a lot of us, there are a lot more athletes that are interested in this that need sort of an open door, sort of a hand to get into this area, to be more productive, to help shed light on what's going on.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, information is key. Often when people first hear this, they have a knee-jerk reaction. What do you mean? What do you mean you're going to bring 18-year-olds into the juvenile system? When in reality, there's such a significant body of research and there's data that really backs and supports why this is the best policy for young people and for public safety. So to the extent that athletes can reach out to organizations like us at Citizens for Juvenile Justice, where we have this information readily available to share, and we have it available to share in various formats, whether it be a report or whether it be a social media kit, having athletes, really just boost up the campaign. There's a website, Raise the Age MA, that I encourage everyone who's currently on this live to go and check out, which has many of the arguments in support of Raise the Age and why it's important. To the extent that in personal circles, in sort of broader networks, really sharing why this policy is so important, why it's a game changer for young people, their present and their future, and really sharing information to debunk some of the misconceptions about criminal justice and what really works to help young people achieve better outcomes.
I agree. I think I definitely am blessed to have two guys, Grant and Jalen, on my team that are, I think, as passionate about this area as I am. And I don't think every team, NBA team, has multiple players that are willing to step into this field. But I think there are more than we think. And I think it's about connecting us, about getting us on the same page, and I think attacking campaigns like this together. So I think we can do more. I think we will continue to do more. I really appreciate you getting on today. I'm sure people that are listening have learned a little bit. I've learned a lot, and we'll be in touch. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you as well, and not just you, but the entire Celtics organization, like the strong stand you all have taken in support of social and racial justice and youth justice. It is seen, it is acknowledged, and it is appreciated. So thank you and the organization as well.
Thank you, man. Talk to you soon.
Appreciate you.